Planned obsolescence wants you on a 24-month treadmill. The business model is simple. Sell you a $1,000 phone every 2 years, forever. To them, you are not a customer. You are a recurring revenue stream. But if you play their game and stay on that treadmill for 30 years, you are effectively burning a 5-figure chunk of your future wealth just for the privilege of taking slightly higher resolution selfies. I have run the math on the true cost of upgrading, and it is not just about the sticker price. It is about the compounding wealth you destroy by treating a durable tool like a disposable subscription. Today, we are going to look at why a phone should last you 4 years, how the industry tricks you into thinking it can't, and exactly how much money you walk away with if you just refuse to play along. Most of us look at a phone purchase as a one-time painful event. You walk into the store, you tap your card for $1,000, or you sign up for a monthly installment plan, and you walk out. But from a personal finance perspective, a smartphone isn't a purchase. It is a cost of living. It is a utility bill. The only variable is how high that bill is going to be. When you upgrade every 2 years, you are voluntarily opting into the premium tier of that utility bill. You are telling the market that you are willing to pay double the necessary maintenance cost for your digital life. The tech giants love this. They rely on it. They have designed an entire ecosystem, from battery chemistry to social pressure, to ensure that at the 24-month mark, you start feeling that itch. But here is the reality. That itch is expensive, and scratching it is one of the most common ways people bleed wealth without ever noticing. Before we get into the ugly depreciation curves, I want to mention that we are going to go deep into the numbers today. I am not just going to tell you to stop buying nice things. I am going to show you how to buy nice things strategically so they don't wreck your compounding curve. If you want to stop leaking money on tech and start keeping that surplus for your own freedom, you are in the right place. We are looking at the best ROI on your time right now. So let's get straight into the reality of how often people actually upgrade. There is a pervasive belief that a phone life cycle is 2 years. This is a hangover from the old days of carrier contracts, where you were subsidized to swap your device every 24 months. But that era is gone. The subsidies are largely hidden in financing now, yet the habit remains. We treat a 2-year-old phone like it is ancient history. We act as if a processor from 24 months ago can't handle opening an email or scrolling social media. This is purely a status-oriented behavior. When we look at the actual data, the 2-year cycle is reserved almost exclusively for the premium user. These are the people who view their device as a fashion statement or a status symbol rather than a communication tool. If you are upgrading every time your contract allows it, you are putting yourself in a luxury tax bracket that offers very little functional return on investment. Let's look at what is actually happening in the market. Recent empirical studies from 2025 show that global replacement cycles have lengthened significantly. Back in 2013, people really were swapping phones every 2.4 years. But by 2022, that average had stretched to 3.7 years. Cell's data puts the global average around 3.5 years. Even Verizon's CFO admitted that the average US upgrade cycle has extended beyond 42 months. That is 3.5 years. So, if you are still on a 2-year cadence, you are actually an outlier. You are moving nearly twice as fast as the average consumer. The market has realized that phone innovation has plateaued. The difference between the iPhone 12 and the iPhone 14, or the Galaxy S22 and S24, is marginal for 99% of users. Yet, about 40% of people are still trapped in that 2 to 3 year upgrade loop, burning capital they don't need to spend. The data gets interesting when you split it by user type. Premium phone users, the ones buying the $1,000 flagships, are the ones most likely to upgrade every 2 to 2.3 years. This is the paradox of tech spending. You would think that if you buy the most expensive, durable, high-spec device, you would keep it the longest because it stays fast and relevant for years. But the opposite happens. The people spending the most upfront are also the ones replacing the asset the fastest. This is the enthusiast tax. It is driven by psychological obsolescence, not functional failure. The phone works fine. It takes great photos. It runs every app. But because a new model exists, the current one feels old. This specific psychological gap between the phone's utility and your perception of it is exactly where the manufacturers make their profit margins. So, where should we be? If the average is drifting toward 3.5 years, the smart money is on a 4-year cycle. A 4-year cycle is conservative, realistic, and financially efficient. It aligns with the actual hardware capabilities of modern devices. High-end phones today are built with ceramic shields, titanium frames, and processors that are vastly more powerful than most software requires. Extending your use to 4 years puts you on the rational side of the curve. You are still getting a premium experience, but you are amortizing that cost over a sensible time frame. It is the difference between leasing a luxury car and driving it into the ground. One keeps you poor, the other provides utility at a fraction of the price. Now, I want to show you exactly what that difference looks like in cold, hard cash. You might be thinking, Tom, it's just a few $100 every other year. Who cares? And sure, if you just look at the monthly payment, it feels like nothing. But that is exactly how they get you. They hide the total cost of ownership inside the monthly cash flow. I'm going to run the raw math on a 2-year versus a 4-year cycle, assuming you buy flagship phones. When you see the actual net cost difference over an 8-year period, you will realize this isn't about coffee money. This is about a fundamental leak in your financial bucket. To compare apples to apples, let's assume you buy a $1,000 phone. We are going to ignore financing, interest, or insurance for a moment and just look at purchase price minus resale value. This is your burn rate. The moment you open the box, that phone loses value. Industry data shows smartphones depreciate 40 to 50% in the first year alone. It is brutal. By the end of year 2, that phone is worth about 30% of what you paid, so $300. By the end of year 4, it is worth maybe 10%, $100. This creates a curve where the value drops off a cliff early on and then flattens out. The secret to winning this game is holding the asset during the flat years, where you are getting utility without suffering massive depreciation. Here is scenario A. You are on the 2-year treadmill. You buy the phone for $1,000. You keep it for 2 years. You sell it for $300. Your net cost for those 2 years is $700. Break that down, and you are paying $350 a year to own a phone. Over an 8-year window, which is a decent chunk of your adult life, you will go through 4 separate phones. 4 times 700 equals $2,800 in total sunk costs. That is nearly $3,000 just to have a working device in your pocket for 8 years. And remember, that assumes you actually go through the hassle of reselling it. If you just toss it in a drawer, your cost is even higher. Now look at scenario B. You buy the same $1,000 phone, but you keep it for 4 years. You sell it at the end for $100. Your net cost for the cycle is $900. Divide that by 4 years, and your annual cost is $225. Over that same 8-year window, you only buy 2 phones. 2 times 900 is $1,800 total. Compare the two numbers. 2-year cycle, $2,800. 4-year cycle, $1,800. You are saving $1,000 of post-tax money every 8 years simply by waiting. That is a massive efficiency gain for 0 effort. You literally make money by doing nothing. I was being generous with those resale numbers. Let's be honest, most people are terrible at reselling their old tech. They trade it in for pennies on the dollar, or they let it rot in a drawer. If we assume zero resale value, the math is even starker. On a 2-year cycle, you buy 4 phones in 8 years. That is $4,000. On a 4-year cycle, you buy 2 phones. That is $2,000. It is a clean 50% reduction in your costs. You are cutting your tech bill in half. Imagine if you could cut your grocery bill or your rent in half just by making a decision once every 4 years. That is the leverage you have here. Saving $1,000 every 8 years is nice. It pays for a vacation. But if you stop there, you are missing the real story. The wealthy don't just save money, they employ it. The real cost of upgrading your phone too often isn't the cash you lose today, it is the compound interest you murder in the future. I want to show you what happens when we take that annual savings, that $250 a year, and actually invest it. This is where a bad habit turns into a 5-figure tragedy. You have heard of the Latte factor, the idea that small daily expenses add up to a fortune. I've always had mixed feelings about that because I enjoy coffee. But a phone upgrade isn't coffee. It brings you very little daily joy after the first week. We established that the difference between the 2-year and 4-year cycle is roughly $250 a year in savings. If you automate that savings, if you pay yourself that money instead of paying Apple or Samsung, you are building a capital base. We need to look at the future value of those upgrades. Every time you skip an unnecessary upgrade, you are effectively writing a check to your future self. Let's assume a standard 7% real return, which is the historical average of the stock market adjusted for inflation. If you take that $250 a year and invest it, over 20 years it grows to nearly $10,000. Over 30 years, it starts getting into the high 4 figures or low 5 figures. And remember, this is a conservative estimate. If you are a dual income household, and you both switch from a 2-year to a 4-year cycle, you are doubling those numbers. Now we are talking about $20,000 or $30,000 of wealth generated simply by not buying something you didn't need. That is a down payment on an investment property. That is a year of college tuition. Vaporized because you wanted a slightly better camera lens. This highlights the core difference between how the poor and the rich think about assets. The poor buy liabilities that depreciate, things that go down in value. The rich buy assets that appreciate. When you constantly cycle through phones, you are aggressively buying a depreciating asset. You are maximizing your exposure to loss. By extending the cycle, you minimize your exposure to depreciation and maximize your capital for appreciation. It is a defensive financial move. You are effectively shielding your net worth from the tech industry's marketing department. Over a 30-year adult life, the 2-year upgrader buys 15 phones. The 4-year upgrader buys 7 or 8. That is 7 extra transactions. 7 extra times you opened your wallet and handed over $1,000 plus tax. If you view your life as a business, that is just bad management. You are over-ordering inventory. You are carrying costs you don't need. When you look back at age 60, do you want a pile of obsolete e-waste? Or do you want an extra 15 or 20 grand in your retirement account? It seems like a small choice today, but time magnifies everything. So, if the math is so obvious, why do we all fail at this? Why do we feel that burning desire to upgrade, even when our current phone is perfectly fine? It is not an accident. It is engineered. There are 4 specific types of obsolescence that companies use to break your willpower. Most people only know about the first one, hardware failure. But the other 3 are where the real manipulation happens. Let's break down the psychological warfare being played on your wallet. First, there is material and functional obsolescence. This is the stuff simply wearing out. Batteries degrade, ports get loose, or the software updates eventually stop coming. Historically, this was a legitimate problem. Phones from 2015 really did die after 2 years. But today, hardware is incredibly robust. A battery replacement costs $80 and extends the life of a phone by another 2 years easily. And look at software support. Samsung and Google are now promising 7 years of OS updates for their flagships. The "it won't run the new apps" excuse is dead. Technically, these devices are marathon runners, but we treat them like sprinters. This is the big one: psychological obsolescence. This is when a product works perfectly, but your mind decides it is trash. Marketing departments spend billions to create this feeling. They change the shape of the camera bump. They introduce a new colour that screams, "I have the new one." They make subtle design shifts that serve no functional purpose other than to signal that your current device is last generation. It creates social friction. You feel like you are falling behind. This is a manufactured insecurity. They are selling you a solution to a problem they created. Recognizing this feeling, identifying it as a marketing tactic rather than a genuine need, is the first step to saving that $1,000. Then we have economic obsolescence. This is where the carriers get involved. They structure trade-in deals that make it seem irresponsible not to upgrade. Trade in your 2-year-old phone and get $800 off the new one. It sounds like free money. It isn't. It is a retention trap. They are locking you into a new 3-year contract with a high-tier data plan to get that credit. You end up paying more in service fees over the life of the contract than you saved on the phone. They are shifting the cost from the device to the service, and you thank them for it. Always look at the total cost of the contract, not just the monthly device payment. Finally, there is the true cost, the environmental bill. I mention this because waste is financially inefficient. The majority of a smartphone's carbon footprint comes from manufacturing, not usage. Making the chips, mining the rare earths, shipping the glass, that is where the cost is. When you upgrade every 2 years, you are doubling your manufacturing footprint. You are consuming 2 discrete units of high-energy manufacturing instead of 1. By holding for 4 years, you halve that impact. It is rare that the financially selfish decision, keeping your money, is also the ethically correct decision for the planet. In this case, they align perfectly. Being cheap is being green. So, what is the protocol? How do we actually do this without feeling like Luddites? It starts with a mindset shift. You need to stop viewing your phone as a status symbol and start viewing it as a tool. A hammer doesn't get worse just because a new hammer comes out with a red handle. If your phone opens apps instantly, takes clear photos, and holds a charge, it is a good hammer. The moment you detach your ego from the device, the urge to upgrade vanishes. You reclaim your power as a consumer. Planned obsolescence wants you to believe a $1,000 phone is a 2-year subscription. But the numbers don't lie. On a 2-year cycle, you are spending nearly double the annual cost of ownership compared to a 4-year cycle. You are sacrificing 5 figures of potential future wealth. You are generating double the e-waste. And for what? A slightly brighter screen? The hardware can handle 4 years. The software is supported for 7. The only part that needs to be upgraded is the script playing in your head. Keep the phone. Change the battery. Invest the difference. That is how you win.